What's up, Fantasy Champions? Spotlight Sports Network is excited to tell you about an amazing deal from Thrive Fantasy, your place for daily fantasy sports and esports. Right now with promo code SS Network, Thrive Fantasy will match up to $50 of your first deposit. So go to thrivefantasy.com and sign up now with promo code SS Network. That's thrivefantasy.com, promo code SS Network.
Do you like the Oakland A's? Are you a fan of the Golden Knights? Do you love the Los Angeles Chargers? Well then, my friend, you're in the right place. This is the Snake Sports Talk Show with your host, Jake the Snake SIlva, brought to you by the Spotlight Sports Network.
And now, broadcasting live from Las Vegas, the Snake Sports Talk Show with Jake Silva starts now. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is that time again on a Wednesday night. It's the Snake Sports Talk Show here on the Spotlight Sports Network, wherever and however you may be watching and listening. We are live forms, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and of course on Twitch. That is where you can like and follow us all over the social media platform, all on the grid. We've got a lot to talk about here today, but I appreciate every single one of you guys coming on here tonight. It's going to be a fun, jam-packed show. And by the way, we got 15% off on our merchandises as well as you go online to SpotlightSportsNetwork.com. Look up them on the merchandise section, powered by Spreadshirt, and get yourselves geared up with t-shirts, hats, hoodies, and so much more. Repping for the network, repping for your favorite show and shows on the network, just by going to SpotlightSportsNetwork.com. Merchandise section, powered by Spreadshirt. Oh, it's been kind of like a laid back week this week because it was an awful lot with the NHL's free agency, the NBA's free agency, and then, of course, the draft. Everything's starting to kind of calm itself down. But I'll tell you this. Training camp is already underway in the NFL. I can't wait for it. And on top of all that, the NFL season's right there around the corner. You're going to have preseason games this year, and we'll see. We shall see exactly how everything pans out as promised. And of course, as the new season kicks off, it'll be a lot of fun and it'll be very, very interesting for the time coming. So, I want to dig in deep with this. So here's what's interesting. I do have family that live in California. I do. All of them are basically in the NorCal region. Okay. They live in in Fresno and San Jose. And then, of course, a little bit more on that is Santa Clara County with San Francisco and Oakland. So I've got family that's all around the California region. I even do have some that are in Southern California in the beautiful spots. Hollywood, as all of us have imagined it, and if all of us have seen it, it's a tourist attraction, right? It's one of the best tourist spots in California. You go and see the Hollywood sign. You see a lot of the famous actors, actresses, and so many players, so many athletes as well, get themselves stamped up onto the ground, has their own personal stars, and they're recognized. They're recognized as one of the best of the best. That's what Hollywood has always been looked at. And Hollywood always has this glamour. They always have this glamour. Sprinkle a little bit of, some of the stardom and a lot of it. That's always what Hollywood, California has been known for. Let me tell you something about this is actually reverting back to the take I had Monday night, because we're talking about the LA Lakers here. And they have made some very intriguing, interesting moves. And a lot of us, I think, are very befuddled by it. I think a lot of us are kind of questionable about it. But this is not surprising to me personally, because Los Angeles is superstar town. So has New York in the past. It's been superstar town. They have the money's worth. They're willing to spend it, and they're willing to get players in the building. You know what's interesting, and I've said this over and over again, and it reverted back to my take on Monday night. Why I said what I said when the Lakers and the Yankees are a lot more alike than you think. They have never been, these are two prestigious franchises that have, to hell with building their young core, buying superstars in the league, and winning championships. The only ones who grew in the Lakers system, Kobe Bryant, Rick Fox, Derek Fisher, Magic Johnson. Some of us would probably say Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, but actually he kind of inherited a little more of the era along with Magic, but then eventually won a championship in Milwaukee and so on and so forth. We all know the histories from there. Then we talk about the recruitments of Shaquille O'Neal, Pau Gasol, Metta World Peace, awful lot of players. And the Lakers have never been an organization to build their young talent. Do you guys all remember that year in 2013 when Kobe, Steve Nash, Dwight Howard, you still had Pau and you still had Metta World Peace, then it was a bunch of kids. And then ultimately, everything that we'd ever hoped for a stacked team like the like the Lakers didn't pan through. And then eventually, the Lakers took on an entire playoff hiatus because of the fact of they had to work on D'Angelo Russell. They had to work on Julius Randle. They had to work on Brandon Ingram. And then Lonzo Ball. And then they also had to work on Kyle Kuzma and Josh Hart. None of them apparently panned through because they're all gone. And the point I'm trying to make is with the Lakers, because this is odd. The Lakers this offseason, what did they do? Oh, we'll go and we'll get, Trevor Ariza. Yeah, Trevor Ariza was also one of the youngsters. He was one of the youngsters that came into this league, built himself up, and then eventually got traded off because they don't have time to build. They want to win now. So we'll get Trevor Ariza back after all these years. Reunite him. Dwight Howard. Yeah, he won a championship with the Lakers before in the past, and then he just played a year in Philly. Now he's back in LA again. Oh, and let's not forget Malik Monk, Talon Horton Tucker, Kendrick Nunn, a young kid, and then Carmelo Anthony. What the hell are the Lakers doing? First off, listen, you want to know the difference between Michael Jordan and LeBron James? You can even throw Kobe in this mix. Two of them, Michael Jordan and Kobe, both of them inherited their championship teams. Jordan had Scottie Pippen, and Pippen was in his prime. By the way, Steve Kerr was in his prime. Dikembe Mutombo at times was in his prime. And then Dennis Rodman kind of was iffy, but would still manage to be a really good rebounder. Still on the cusp of ending his prime, but was still in it. And Chicago won 6 championships. They were in their primes. How about Kobe and the Shaq Show winning back-to-back-to-back titles? Because they had Robert Horry, they had Derek Fisher, they had Rick Fox, they had a ton of players. Then fast forward, where Kobe ended up recruiting Pau Gasol in his prime. Ron Artest before becoming Meta World Peace in his prime. You still had Derek Fisher. And then you get young kids like Vladimir Radmanovich, Jordan Farmar, Andrew Bynum, and a lot of these guys. They had plenty of veteran leadership, but at the same time, they were in their primes. Now, let me just tell you what I'm seeing with the Lakers. I've got everybody in their late 30s. There's barely anybody. Don't even get me started with Kendrick Nunn as being one of the youngsters. Everybody's gone. Caruso's gone. Kuzma's gone. KCP's gone. Everybody's gone. There is no young blood in this organization. Listen, I'm not speaking ill about superstar, talents and stardoms. I'm not doing that. Because we all know the years that Carmelo was this big thing in Denver. He was a great player. And then all of a sudden, you didn't even know if he was really a leader or not. You really didn't know. Because eventually they get Chauncey Billups, they get Allen Iverson, and then they lost it. And so eventually Carmelo goes to New York. And in New York, they go to the playoffs, but never get farther than that. And then he just bounces around from Oklahoma City to Houston and was on the cusp of retiring until goes to the Trailblazers. And Damian Lillard, of all people, gave him a bounce back career. And what's funny about this is I do not see this panning out right. I really don't. Everyone on this roster, this is the oldest roster in the NBA. LeBron James, I think this is going to be the time that he becomes human. It's no disrespect, but oftentimes in our lives, our bodies change. We change differently. There are certain parts of us that don't even work properly, but that happens. And you got to accumulate. You got to acclimate to the change. You got to change up your dietary. Maybe you got to end up exercising more. Maybe you got to end up eating more vegetables. Maybe you got to end up doing something that's going to help you to last longer until the time is right. This is not going to pan out well for this Lakers organization. Like I said before, Hollywood is superstar central. That's always what that city has been about. Carmelo Anthony. Ooh, we all remember the Denver, New York years. LeBron James, he was the chosen one in Cleveland. Then goes to Miami, wins championships, comes back to Cleveland, then he goes to Lakers, and here we are now. Dwight Howard was a superstar in Orlando. We all remember the dunk, and then he made it into the finals with Rashard Lewis and Hedo Turkoglu and a lot of players. Man, is he great. And then bounced around a lot of teams, like from Atlanta to Houston to Philly, and then goes to the Lakers like twice, 3 times actually. What are they doing? I don't understand this. Listen, I know the NBA does not appreciate college basketball. They never have, and I'm afraid they never will. You got kids coming in at age 16, 17, who they're either going into the G League. You're very rare that a freshman in college, and we talk about the Zions, we talk about the Kobes, the LeBrons, the Ja Morants, all these other players. Listen, every one of these players that play on the court day in and day out, quarter for quarter, night after night, all have specific talents. And I don't get frustrated, but I get annoyed when there is an awful lot of player comparisons because the NBA is a league of its own, a league of its own talents, a league of its own just here and there. What the hell are the Lakers doing? This is the oldest roster, and on top of all this, this is why the difference when you watch the Kobe groups, they had to get youngsters because they know that they were only limited to a certain amount of time on the floor. That's why you had D'Angelo Russell. That's why you had Julius Randle. That's why you had Brandon Ingram. That's why you had Kyle Kuzma. It was to help to give you shots, time on the court, maybe even defensive plays and running the clock out. You can only run with conditioning for so long. Listen, I do have friends of mine older than me that are in the best shapes of their lives. But not everybody is like them. Everyone's its own person. It's how you take care of yourself. Carmelo, his best days are behind him. Dwight Howard is just Dwight Howard at this point. Not exactly the big-time superstar, but is still going to be willing to contribute. Anthony Davis, for one, has become an injury liability. I love his style of play, but sometimes his style of play gets him hurt, especially with his size. You're telling me that Kendrick Nunn is going to be the absolute difference maker in this organization? Please. Every single one of these guys. And listen, I understand the Russell Westbrook trade. I really do. I really, 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 really do. He's a hyper-athletic player, is willing to give you points within the perimeters. He's not going to shoot further than 14 feet. He's not. He's going to give you important baskets when you need him. But when it comes to the three-point line, this will be the worst three-point shooting team we may see in the league this next year because everybody's trying to shoot for threes. The only one who's probably going to take more of the shots is LeBron. Guarantee it. Because you don't have any other youngsters out there that over the course of time, they work on one thing, three-point shots. Why do you think Golden State is successful? Why do you think Utah's on the rise? Why do you think Phoenix made it to the finals? And why do you think a lot of these teams in the Western Conference have made it that far like this? And same with the East. I don't understand what the Lakers are doing here. This is no time for superstar tandems. It's not. I thought the whole point of being a prestigious franchise was getting the right personnel, the right leadership, working on the young. I mean, look at the Dodgers. The Dodgers are so expendable. They could trade any young kid within their farm system, and they still have somebody that's going to be a top 4, top 5. That's just how they work. And they still have superstars. They picked up Max Scherzer, and they've got David Price, they got Danny Duffy, they got Clayton Kershaw, and they got Walker Buehler. You cannot get past that. But they do this right because they know, hey, young kids, they got offense. We're going to throw in some veterans. Let's throw in Justin Turner. Let's throw in Mookie Betts. Let's throw in Max Muncy. I mean, come on. Why do you think right now that the Dodgers are probably one of the most powerful teams in MLB right now? I thought the Lakers would very much be the most powerful team in the NBA, but they're kind of making this a complete joke show. That's what it's looking like. I mean, honestly, out with the young, in with the old. Is that what we have? Is that the slogan we have to give for the Lakers now? This is it's unreal. Look, they're not going to shoot above 40%. They are not going to shoot above 40%. They're probably going to get at least maybe 30, 31, but they're not going to shoot above 40%. Please. I looked at every single one of them. The only one who's going to contribute more is probably going to be LeBron James because it's so LeBron reliant. It has it written all over it. All right. So, I wanted to talk about this. And the NHL has an awful lot of storylines. They have an awful lot of storylines. First of all, there's still the ongoing investigation with the Chicago Blackhawks. And who knows how that's going to pan out. I don't know how this is going to favor well. But disciplinary actions have to be taken. One player in particular that honestly, he is not going to show up in this league ever again. But we don't know that yet. There's still ongoing investigations about it. But Evander Kane of the San Jose Sharks, this entire situation, I'm not going to dig in deep, but this has been situations that has been going on since 2014. And he's not mentally right. Listen, I'm a guy, I'm a person, a supporter when it comes to mental health awareness. I really am. And it's a very strong and powerful thing. And it can hurt someone. It can. It gets the best out of somebody. This is not something about, well, you're talking about your feeling. No, I'm talking about the in deep stuff. Because this right now is one that I like. You just see all the baggage. First of all, an assault claim in 2014, and then fast forward, has more problems leading up to 16, 17. And then eventually, because there was fines, there was this ongoing partying stuff, whatever the case may be, then gets traded to San Jose. And San Jose gives him a payday. And then eventually the gambling still goes on. And then just this past year, Kane filed for a Chapter 7 bankruptcy as a hockey player. How in the hell does that happen? What are you doing? But I get it. Because there are a lot of things that can be addictive. Trust me. It doesn't even have to be something you smoke or you drink or whatever. Even though I would not recommend it. I would not. But there are things that can have the same stigma. And in Evander Kane's position, he's got an awful lot of baggage. And the league's not going to pan this out. The league's not going to cut it. This is, again, I know that there were a lot of accusations that was coming from the wife. And I'm not going to dig in deep. It's more personal. But there were a lot of accusations that were coming from the wife in this entire investigation. But you look at all this baggage that started from 2014 to 2021 right now. I'm surprised they even still have him in this league. Listen, the NFL is not perfect. They try their absolute best when it comes to these suspensions. And also when it comes to bans from the league. First of all, how many times has Josh Gordon been in and out and in and out because he can't stay off the weed? Okay, that's the one thing. You can't stay off the weed, bro. Or what about the time when Ray Rice, when the assault, on his girl cost him his career? Never played again. And the crazy thing was, you had Kareem Hunt in that video incident. He gets cut, but then comes back to the Cleveland Browns. How does that make any sense? And then, of course, lots of other things. There's a whole list. I can go on for days. But this thing with Evander Kane is just unbelievable, unreal, and it's disappointing. You need help, man. You need serious help. Because the league itself is not cutting it. You're completely draining yourself down the toilet. And it's embarrassing. It's honestly embarrassing when you're in a professional sport and you filed for Chapter 7 bankruptcy. How does that happen and how does that work? I don't get it. And it's just, it's sad. It's disappointing. It's frustrating. I can understand that from, the wife's accusations, but still, anybody that looks on this type of situation, this is horrifying. So, again, honestly, Evander Kane, not that great of a player, honestly. Even though that he's had his spurts, he can be a good player, could be even greater had he not had this baggage. So I just say this, whatever the terms may be between the NHL and their investigative groups and everybody else that's involved to getting this investigation underway, and then what the final terms may be, I'd say take the year off. That's the only thing that I can say. Even if he gets banned or whatnot, or whatever they plan to do with this, take a year off. Because at this point, you're not right in your head. You're not right in your head. There's all this stuff. There's this partying. There's this gambling problem, all this stuff. I'm not getting too deep into detail. But as one person who would be supportive, be at least a voice of reason, that goes for anybody, my family, my friends, a lot of people. Even for those who share stories. I'm all into stories. I want to know your story. I don't want to know your entire, your status or all this other stuff. I want to know your story. What's your story? If your story validates where you are in your life or where you want to be at, you'll have a voice of reason. So, honestly, I'd take a year off. Get your mind right. Because this is a lot of baggage. And it's embarrassing. And at the same time, you're going to have a lot of things crash landing. And that's the only thing that I could really say about this whole situation. Because one, I am not into this. All this stuff. Because the second that you have problem after problem after problem after problem after problem, you need to unload those problems. Don't just go about pretending things are going to be good or continuously try something expecting different results. That's insanity. So take a year off. Do yourself a favor. Take a year off. Get help. Talk to somebody. And at the very least, start baby steps. Because you can lose people like that. But that's where I say, Evander Kane has so much of this baggage. I will never speak ill of any person. Even though, like I said, you get yourself mixed up into the wrong crowd, you got to deal with the consequences. That's life. It sucks. It's hard, but that's life. And you got to learn from the consequences, not brush it off. So be a man about it. Coming up next. So, so it's kind of, so like I said, I'm going to have my predictions for the NFL. I've worked on the NFC West on Monday. I'm going to work on the AFC West tonight. And this is interesting. I actually kind of like this. It's tough because there's an awful lot in this division that could very much change, but it's getting better and better and better. And it's crazy. So I'm going to speak about that at the bottom end of the hour and give you my predictions on the division itself. And also I'll be speaking at least a little bit more up on the NBA because I think we're witnessing a few teams on the rise, ones that might be rising to be contenders again. And I will explain those teams there in a moment coming up next. All right, guys, for all of you fantasy players out there far and wide, coast to coast, everywhere that loves cold hard cash and you guys love fantasy play, there is a place that you can go to online, download on your mobile device through Google Play in the App Store called Thrive Fantasy. Thrive Fantasy has so many different pool plays and different matchups that get reloaded every week, every day. And the best part of it is we're coming into the next year NFL season, and you're already getting into pool plays that can win you up to $100,000 in those weeks of the season. It's a lot of fun. And like I said, you put your deposit down. When you put in $20 into your deposit and you go online and sign up for the first time, use promo code SS Network, and you can turn the $20 into $50 courtesy of Thrive Fantasy. And you could get more play that way, more opportunities to enter in, more opportunities to, compete and win cold hard cash. So go to thrivefantasy.com, have fun with it. ThriveFantasy.com, promo code SS Network. That's ThriveFantasy.com, promo code SS Network.
Welcome to the My City, My Game pod show featuring Raider J77, your play for all things Raiders and all things Trailblazers. Brought to you by the Spotlight Sports Network. Make sure you like, subscribe, and hit the bell for notifications. Now let's go.
But I know that's just in my mind. I know everything is just in my mind. Do you really want to be famous? Do you really want to be a superstar? Do you really want to get dangerous? Do you even know where the groupies are? Bitches out here be-
Welcome to Hammer's house.
Once a Raider, bruh, always a Raider, bruh. Shit simple as that. You look silver and black. Lot of bread invested in that O-line. Car insurance cost an arm and a leg to reach that goal line. It's go time.
Hello, I'm Orville Red and Sunburned, and my latest popping corn is foolproof.
Yeah, it's proof you're a fool.
It's my new Orville Red and Sunburnt nitro-fueled popping corn. The popping corn with just a touch of nitroglycerin added. Yes, that nitroglycerin blows each kernel up to several times its normal size, and you can bet every kernel pops, or is at least blown to microscopic particles. So, fire up my nitroglycerin popping corn. You'll get a bang out of it, or my name isn't...
Orville Head and Shoulders.
I don't know what all that means, do you?
Gosh, don't you just love like retro stuff like this? I came across this the other night by one of our good colleagues, Mal Gooley of the Gooley Zone. You can definitely check out here on the Spotlight Sports Network. Man, I just think of stuff like that, and it's funny as all hell because it makes you think about like a lot of these retro stuff. But again, I think it's really like really is interesting. So I looked at the NBA and the free agency. And again, there were a ton of moves that were made. Lots of teams ended up retaining a lot of players. Teams have actually bolstered themselves up with some really good players. But I want to talk about one particular team that I honestly do believe could be on the rise to being back to being contenders again. So the Chicago Bulls, what did they do all throughout this whole offseason? They acquired players, and not just any players, but they've acquired good ones that they know can shoot and are actually putting them up on the map of being really, really good. And again, I looked and I analyzed a lot of these moves. And Chicago is not playing around. We know about the times with Gar Foreman and others in the front office. And then the second that the front office left and changed, they picked up a couple players through the draft. Then they got serious. They get DeMar DeRozan. They get Lonzo Ball. They have Zach LaVine. They have Nikola Vucevic. And they've even got some bench role players. And on top of all that, there were still talks about other moves being made. And listen, I don't want to end up saying that because Milwaukee won the championship, that now everybody's fleeing to the East. No, that's not particularly the case, even though that the East is getting better. The Sixers are, the Sixers were losing a lot of players, but they still are good. Chicago now could be up on the map of being contenders. Charlotte, of course, has a lot of young players, ones that we didn't even realize were actually really good, especially LaMelo Ball. We didn't expect him to be the way that he was last year. And now I'm kind of excited of what that's going to look like next year, because there are a lot of good young talents. But then you also have Milwaukee, bits and pieces of Boston. There's so much that you could really, really look at this. And as I've said before, because the league itself shifts all the time, and the West, because the West is so stacked. I mean, Golden State's going to be healthier. Dallas is going to want to make a push and make a move to get even better than where they were before. Utah still manages to be competitive. And there's just an awful lot that's just going on in the NBA. But the Chicago Bulls, this has been years and years and years and years since the 90s with Jordan and Pippen and a lot of really good players in the dynasty that we watched on The Last Dance for 6 championships. Chicago had not been the same organization since, even though Derrick Rose was a hell of a ball player to watch at his time and as being the rookie of the year, and just the type of athleticism in play that he brought to the court. Then there was Joakim Noah, then Taj Gibson, and there were a couple of others. They still managed to get to the playoffs, but were not as impactful as people thought they would be. And so Chicago now has got bigger, better, and brighter futures. Kobe White, he's going to be a hell of a shooter. You also now have DeMar DeRozan being a guard or forward that he can be very impactful and give you important buckets. Now, I know it kind of summed up like it was kind of too much on the price, but they're still in a really good position. In the Eastern Conference, because there are a lot of different open spaces. And honestly, in the 7-8 seed, those are mostly like those are more of like your developing teams. That's your Orlandos. That's your Indianas. That's your Charlottes. That's a lot of these other teams. Chicago seemed like they were a developmental team at the time after the championships. And then after the Derrick Rose era. But now it's getting back into the heap of things that they want to get competitive. They want to be better than where they were before. So I really liked what Chicago ended up doing. And they've got a lot of really good players that can contribute. And at the same time, you got role players that know what to do in certain situations. And it's honestly what's going to help them to get even deeper into the position in the Eastern Conference. Time now for the hot press. All right, so I know a lot of people were kind of talking about this, and I kind of brought this out, but former All-Star forward LaMarcus Aldridge is seriously considering a return to the NBA this season. He abruptly retired with the Brooklyn Nets mid-April after heart concerns sidelined him, but now he's exploring the possibility of returning and resuming his 15-year NBA career. Now, they're going to have conversations and prospective teams in the coming weeks that ultimately needs medical clearance to sign a contract. Now, Aldridge is old. He's 36, and he had yet to make a final decision of playing again. Look, I could see him being a really good role player. I do see him being a really good veteran voice, as far as just contributing. I mean, look at some of these veteran bigs. Like Enes Kanter, he's going to Boston again, and he's a veteran experienced player. And then Dwight Howard going to the Lakers, but remember what he did in Philly. And then you look at Andre Drummond going to Philadelphia to helping Joel Embiid. And so that's the kind of role I see Aldridge really kind of passing on. Maybe has a little bit more of a Udonis Haslem type of feel to me. So honestly, however that they're going to play it is going to be very, very interesting. But I really do hope the absolute best, because I remembered when that heart condition, that story came out, and it was terrible. So yeah, it was crazy. So here's what's interesting from here. So the Washington Wizards, they get Spencer Dinwiddie in a sign and trade deal and sign the guard with 3 year, $60 million contract. Now, Spencer Dinwiddie, of course, was one of the important role players for the Brooklyn Nets that gave you at least a lot of real good shots, and was a guy that was really looking to contribute. So the Wizards have Kyle Kuzma, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, and Montrezl Harrell from the Lakers, and then they add on a bunch of other different guards, and then they get Spencer Dinwiddie. So, again, Spencer Dinwiddie, I look at as a real good, important role player, because you know what? Here's another thing. Because the Nets lost a second contributing factor. The first one they lost was Karis LeVert. He's gone. Then the second now is Spencer Dinwiddie. I don't know what the Brooklyn Nets are really going to look like on their bench play, because you have James Harden, you have Kyrie Irving, and Blake Griffin now is back there, and Kevin Durant. I mean, there's a lot you really have to deal with from here, but it's kind of interesting. But I do think Washington's probably trying to get better, to say the least, but who knows? I mean, you got Bradley Beal, who is loyal to the organization. I still think you should get him into an organization it's primed to win now. That's my only honest opinion with Bradley Beal. Such a good shooter in his prime. And you would think the Lakers would have been able to pull off a deal, but that didn't happen. So, again, the Wizards are getting themselves some shooters to help out with Bradley Beal. But let's see what they do, in the rest of the East. So here's what's interesting. So the Washington football team made an address here that they're banning Native American headdresses, face paint, and everything that has to deal with Native American culture from FedEx Stadium. So all the guard gone. It's interesting. I mean, who knows? I don't know what exactly I'm going to look at with this Washington football team. I really don't. Until a new name really does come out. I mean, this is kind of interesting. I gave my personal opinion too when the Cleveland Guardians came out. I'm not in for, I'm not going to go in deep with this, because I have my own opinions. I had a lot to say to it, but all I can say is one, it's not a position where they're trying to offend or anything like that, but hey, change of garb, I guess. But little will we know all the meanings, but again, not going to dig in deep. All right, so the Raiders ended up signing veteran defensive tackle Gerald McCoy to a deal. They're already in a deep but rebuilt defensive line. McCoy missed last season after suffering a ruptured right quadricep tendon in training camp with the Dallas Cowboys. He was a first-team All-Pro in 2013, had 9.5 sacks, 21 quarterback hits, and 4 passes defensed. Also played with the Carolina Panthers in 2019, started all 139 games he played during the span of his career with 352 tackles, 59.9 sacks, 6 forced fumbles, and 4 fumble recoveries. So extra depth, extra veteran leadership there with Gerald McCoy. Again, you're stacking up with guys like Carl Nassib, Cleveland Farrell, Max Crosby, a bunch of others. So, it's kind of interesting. I'm not sure exactly how this is really going to pan through, but we'll see. We'll see where it kind of comes up. So, other than that, Raiders are rebuilding that defense. They're trying to get better. So, wait till you see what I have on the AFC West prediction. So that there, folks, was your hot press. All right, coming up next, my best for last here in this segment. I've always done the NFL division predictions. So I'm going to get in deep here with this one because now we're focusing on the AFC West. And the West from both the NFC and the AFC is just as crazy as you could look at it. And it's a lot of fun. It's a competitive division, and it's only going to get better. But like I said, it's going to be a lot of fun to watch. All right, so like I said before, we've got a deal going on the SpotlightSportsNetwork.com that we've got 15% off everything from now until the 7th of this month. So you don't want to end up missing out on all the killer deals for hats, hoodies, t-shirts, even cell phone covers, coffee mugs, and so much more here on the SpotlightSportsNetwork.com merchandise section powered by Spreadshirt. Get geared up today. August 4th through the 7th, 15% off. Go make it happen.
What's up, Fantasy Champions? Spotlight Sports Network is excited to tell you about an amazing deal from Thrive Fantasy, your place for daily fantasy sports and esports. Right now with promo code SS Network, Thrive Fantasy will match up to $50 of your first deposit. So go to thrivefantasy.com and sign up now with promo code SS Network. That's thrivefantasy.com, promo code SS Network.
Well, folks, I really do appreciate you guys hopping on by with me at the Snake Sports Talk Show as usual. And as always, you guys are always the best supporters here on the show. I really do appreciate it. What's going on, Coach Dante? What's going on? And there's our good friend Jeremy Case right here from Crossbars and Zambonis that you could watch here on the Spotlight Sports Network with everything hockey. But he's also got a new gig coming up soon, so you definitely do not want to miss it here on the Spotlight Sports Network. The new show. It's going to be a lot of fun. Stay tuned for it. So, as usual, and everybody loves this stuff, but I love giving out my division predictions. And I've already been going through a bunch of divisions. I've already done the NFC North, the NFC West, AFC East, AFC South. Now I'm focusing on the AFC West. And again, this is a rather very competitive division because it's filled with young quarterbacks. It's filled with a young offensive core. It's also filled with a lot of young pass rushers. And what's so unique about it, because of course a lot of people are going to be saying like, well, you got Patrick Mahomes there. Well, we know that. And the only way to really win this division is just by beating Patrick Mahomes. That's all you really got to do here in this division. But you got to think about all these pass rushers, and they've got pairs. Think about this. Tyrann Mathieu and Chris Jones in Kansas City. Joey Bosa, and it was Melvin Ingram at the time, but now it could be Joey Bosa and Derwin James. You got Max Crosby and a ton of others. An entire rebuild defense for the Raiders. And then you also got, Von Miller and Bradley Chubb for the Denver Broncos. We might see Patrick Surtain II be pretty good as a top pick. So I'm really excited about this division prediction. So we're going to dig into it. Here we go. So number 4, as I've got here, is the Denver Broncos. This is a reasonable one for me because first and foremost, that defense is still showing itself. And I don't know exactly how much of a step Von Miller really does have, but I know what I'm getting with Bradley Chubb. I think he's going to be a lot healthier and a lot better than where he was before. Patrick Surtain, the big-time pick for them at corner, and Justin Simmons. They know what's going on in this division because there are a bunch of really talented quarterbacks, and they love to throw the football. That's the reason why that they went and got secondaries in the first place. But again, the reason that I have them sitting last in the division is because first and foremost, you got your trusty quarterback in Drew Lock. Now, they did get Teddy Bridgewater, but this is a tough division. It's not that easy to really, fill in the quarterback role, fill in the spot. Again, I know there was a lot of talks about this Aaron Rodgers thing, but that may have to wait until next year. But other than that, I know what I'm getting with Drew Lock. I'm not liking it. But Teddy Bridgewater, if you just give me good passes, maybe that might be a team that fools us. But I've got them finishing 4th, last in this division. Because, again, you think about how high the stakes are in this division and how competitive it is. Number 3, the Las Vegas Raiders. The reason that I have them here a bit 3rd, there's an awful lot they have to clean up. And, they have to clean up a lot of messes. Because, again, 6-3 John Gruden was at and then eventually finished up less than that. They missed the playoffs. They eventually fell off the wagon. I mean, they were in a position where they were 1-6 late in the season. Not really a position you want to put yourself in. So, and here's the thing. Derek Carr is getting John Brown. You're going to get second years out of Brian Edwards, Henry Ruggs. You're hoping they work this out with Henry Ruggs because ultimately he's a speedster guy, but not really been good running the routes. So you better hope that you're expecting something about him. And like I said before, Gerald McCoy, Yannick Ngakoue, and Max Crosby and a lot of others, Carl Nassib, that's a really good rebuild defensive front line. And that could be one that could be scary for a lot of quarterbacks in this conference. So, and again, they also have a rebuilt defensive secondary. Now you have Trayvon Moehrig, and Damon Arnett hopefully will be healthy. And who knows what's going to happen with Jonathan Abram. But this is a rebuild defense. They got a new DC in Gus Bradley. And I think the Raiders could have spurts to be competitive. But I'd like to be I'm very curious as to how they'll finish by this upcoming season. Number 2, the Los Angeles Chargers. First and foremost, the reason I have them up in second, I'm not doing this because it's my favorite team. First off, I'm not throwing my fandom out there, but you have to look about what the Chargers did right. First of all, the first time in 30 years, they've addressed the offensive line. They get Corey Linsley, a Pro Bowl center from Green Bay. They get Matt Filer from Pittsburgh, of what's best left of their offensive line because everybody was gone. Now, who knows who's going to defend Big Ben? Or worst of all, who's going to open up lanes for rookie Najee Harris? The other thing is they go and get Oday Aboushi from Detroit, who's also a really good, solid interior lineman. And then they get their first pick in Rashawn Slater at 13th overall. And he is capable with fast feet. And really good blocking coverage on the tackle position. Brian Balaga, solid. So this is a really good amped up offensive line. And the other part of it is you got Jared Cook. I didn't like the move initially because of the fact of who knows what Jared Cook I'm going to get, if he's going to be one that's impactful. But they said he's been dangerous in the red zone. So if you're going to give him red zone opportunities, now you do have Donald Parham, but again, these are a lot of young kids in this position alone, because Hunter Henry signed a contract with New England. And then the defense. Brandon Staley, new head coach. You got a different looking defense. Asante Samuel Jr. You got Chris Rump. You also got a Kenneth Murray coming into his second year in this league. Derwin James, you hope is healthy. The Chargers are going to be a most improved team this next year. They're going to want to shoot for the playoffs. They've been out of it the last 2 years, and I think this is the time to get serious. Now, I know with a first-year coach, it may not be that easy, but this is a team everybody's looking out for in the AFC. And then finally, my number one, it's no surprise it's the Kansas City Chiefs. First of all, it's Patrick Mahomes. We all know this, but their offensive line, after they got embarrassed in the Super Bowl last year, they got better at it. They got they got Kyle Long, they got Joe Thuney, they got a bunch of really good solid guys, Orlando Brown, and they're amping up their defense. Now, of course, the secondaries was terrible. They didn't really block up all that much. Now, you did get solid numbers from Chris Jones and a couple others, but at the end of the day, when you look at Kansas City, as long as Patrick Mahomes is doing his thing, Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill, and Clyde Edwards-Helaire, this is a different looking offense that's going to get better, that's going to be solid. And, like I said, they might be division winners again, but you got Chargers, you got Raiders, you got those two teams kind of creeping in, but that's my give and take here on this division. So again, Denver 4th, Raiders 3rd, Chargers 2nd, and then Kansas City at 1st. That's my honest opinion with that. I again, this is why I don't put up records right now, because I just look at it from when I looked at the offseason, the draft, and what situationally how they performed last year and what they're going to come across this next year. Because remember, the Raiders were 1-6 late in the season. It was terrible. They weren't winning enough games. They were kind of coughing them up. The Chargers, we know, were losing games that were 7 points or less, but they're using that as fuel and juice for them to get better. The Chiefs got embarrassed in the Super Bowl, couldn't protect Mahomes. They got a better offensive line that's healthier and can protect him better. And then the Denver Broncos, we already know where they're headed, because as long as Drew Lock is there, not going to be a solid-looking team. But the defense I still do love. I love the defense. Justin Simmons, Patrick Surtain, Von Miller, and Bradley Chubb. I love these guys. I mean, this is still, a Denver defense that's willing to get into your face at higher elevation. That's exactly the team I know I'd get night in, night out. So other than that, that's my AFC West NFL division predictions. I appreciate it, guys. Thank you so much for joining me here tonight. We appreciate it. It's been a fun week. I hope you guys have a great night. Be safe up out there, and we will see you guys next Monday night here on the Snake Sports Talk Show on the Spotlight Sports Network. Take care. Have a great week. We're out of here.